This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Okay. Let us call to order the meeting of the Master Plan Implementation Committee for February 23rd, 2022 at around 7:03. And we have 4 of our members here tonight. Francine Tishman, Cindy Palmer, Brittany Taylor, and myself, Chris Fowles. And we're expecting Jim Sini and Chris Madsen, one hopes. So let's get started. I don't see anybody for open time for the public. Thanks everybody for coming up. We are trying to do these, as we stated, somewhat quarterly, given that we don't have the same kind of business that we had last year, but it has been since last October, actually, since we met. So let me pull up the minutes from then. And I don't know if everybody's had a chance to look at them. They got sent around this afternoon or this morning sometime. If anybody had a thought about anything here, but this was the October meeting that we had. And Francine, I think you were absent that meeting, but
yes, I was. Yep.
Yeah.
Can I just mention something? If you go back up to the top of,
sure. Mm-hmm.
I thought we had switched that Chris would be the select board rep and I would be the at-large going forward on the membership. Okay, as the chair.
At some point, I think we did actually. I don't know. It was all kind of confused. I got appointed originally as the at-large, but
yes.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, she's here. Okay.
So sure I can switch those two things.
Yeah,
I must have copied it from an old set of minutes. Yeah. So I'll switch them.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay, Chris is still connecting here, so we'll give her a second. I'll just put this up to show you this. Take a minute, and here comes Jim. All right, perfectly. Perfect. Okay, so take just a second and glance through these if you didn't have a chance to look at the meeting minutes and see if there's anything in particular. I think, yes, did we have that in the attendees? We had Sierra in there, did we not? Was that correct? Let me back up. Yeah, we did. Representing housing, we did. Yeah, okay, perfect. Yeah, because Sierra gave us the update last time a little bit on what was going on. Okay. Hi, Jim. Hi, Chris.
Hey there.
Hey there.
Good. All right. So we're just taking a look at the minutes from the October meeting that we had, the last quarterly meeting of sorts. And I'm sharing the screen on it here, but if you've had a chance to look at it already or not, we'll just see if we can get through this kind of quickly.
In terms of tonight's meeting, Chris?
Yep.
Is Sierra meant to be a member of this committee?
No, she came in, I think, I'm trying to think.
It's covering for me, I think.
Yeah, I think.
Oh, that's it. Okay.
That's what I was just wondering, was Jim here last time? So you've got another absentee member up there.
Oh, I actually said Sierra Simmons representing housing. So do you want me to make Jim absent?
Yeah,
in that meeting?
Jim is a normal member, so yes. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep. So Chris, yeah, Sierra came in his place last time.
Okay.
And that was back in October. Yep. So that was fine. Yeah. So she kind of filled in for Jim, but yes. Okay. Anybody have any comments or questions about the minutes from here, other than those couple small changes? Francine?
Yeah, just under the ARPA, down towards, yes, further down. Here you go. Yeah, Chris announced the, okay. The American Rescue Plan at the time, was it 1.2 million or was
we
it
did
1.8?
Yeah, it should be 1.8, correct. We didn't know how much maybe we had for that second tranche. So yeah, 1.8 is correct. We can put approximately 1.8 would be fine. Yep. That would be good.
So that should be changed. Okay.
Yes, please. Just to change the dollar amount roughly. Yep. Okay. So with those handful of changes, If there's nothing else, could I have a motion to approve the minutes from October with those changes?
So moved.
Okay, second?
I'll
Second.
Okay, all right. All those in favor, roll call, please.
Batson, aye.
Palmer, I.
Taylor, I.
Sini abstain. I wasn't
Okay.
here.
Yep, okay.
Tishman abstain.
Fowles eye. Okay, very good. Thank you. So 2 abstains and 4 approvals, I believe. Correct? All right, very good. Great. So a couple things on the agenda tonight. I wanted to do kind of an update again, just to see where we are this quarter. And then 2 things. We will be having a report out again to Select Board from Master Plan. We were actually going to do it in February, and I postponed it just because we hadn't met again. And I would just propose that what I'll end up doing is taking pretty much the notes from tonight's meeting as our update and sharing that really with Select Board as our quarterly quote unquote report out. And actually these quarterly reports we're finding they'll be twice a year. I don't know that they'll be 4 times a year, but we're getting a lot of reports, which is great. I mean, it's good to hear from everybody, but we may not have to overdo it as well when people haven't been meeting very frequently. So that will be happening. And then we have the annual town report coming up, where the preparations, the calls have gone out to prepare the write-ups for the annual town report for each of the committees. And I'll talk about that later on here, but what I was going to do was just simply use the basically the presentation from the last meeting to Select Board, the last report out to Select Board with some edits in it, but we'll talk about that in a bit without having to rewrite an entire report. What I thought I would do tonight would be to take a look at where we are with the master plan update in general here. And I wanted to pull up kind of chapter by chapter and just see if we could run down. Oops, this is maybe not showing right. Hold on. Come on. Of course. Wrong. Oh, I got to stop sharing that one. Just a minute. Whenever I want to do this, it doesn't like me to do it. What's going on? I've stopped the screen sharing. Okay, we'll try this again.
There is the idea that because yesterday was 02/22/2022, all tech things have been affected. So.
Oh, is that true? Well, that could be my problem. Okay, I'll buy that one. I'll buy that idea. Let me just see how I can make this a little bit smaller. Where'd the Zoom go? Goodness gracious, where's my Zoom? Okay, now I can't figure out how to make this. So can you all see the screen okay though? Is it too big?
Yeah, we're
Okay.
good.
All right, well, let's just deal with this then. So what we have is, I thought I would go through each of just run down the chapters just briefly. So this is the housing chapter 1, and just see from Jim, in your case, as we look at these would be the short-term strategies that were in the final update report that we did with Ken, just to see if there's been any action on any of these, just so we note them, and if there's anything happening with them or not yet, or something that is probably moving toward a back burner. But let's just kind of run through. There'll be like a page for each of the different committees here, I think. So anything on 1A, 1B, or 1C offhand from Jim?
So I think there is movement on here because I'm tying this into, we're working closely, Housing Authority with Planning Board. So I feel a little remiss reporting on Planning Board here. So I'm going to be careful with my words. I don't want to, assume to know what there's to report for them, but I can say with confidence that Paul and the rest of the folks on Planning Board have been very upfront about collaborating with us. We did recently receive a DLTA grant. I think it was for $5,000 to work with PVPC to approach looking at our bylaws and our zoning changes, particularly the inclusionary bylaw, but also our zoning changes toward promoting more affordable housing. So that's
Okay.
a really positive thing. We're going to see that come out very shortly. And I'll also give credit to Dan and Sarah from Planning Board, who've been joining us for Housing Authority as representatives of Planning Board, joining our Housing Authority meetings. So in my opinion, and I hope Paul would agree, that, you know, the collaboration between Planning Board and Housing Authority has been excellent. And while I would say for 1A, B, and C, there hasn't been actual movement on this yet, it's right next on our agenda.
Okay.
And with that DLTA grant for assistance, I'm confident that we're gonna have something exciting to produce in the town.
Good. Okay. So some of those ideas about the mixed commercial district, mixed use districts
Exactly.
and cluster bylaw might be some of the ones that you're going to be tackling together. That would be great.
That's certainly my hope, and I think I speak for other Housing Authority members. And again, I can say with good confidence that the Planning Board members who've been joining us in Housing Authority meetings would say the same. Yes.
Great. Okay.
Enthusiasm around this and
Great.
optimism.
Yep. All right. And then maybe tying in then would be in goal 2 here about the amendments to the zoning bylaw. This is really where
Right.
the meat of what you're
Right.
talking about is currently happening, as well as what will be happening with the DLTA grant then. Is that right?
Yeah. This is more of, I'm jumping the gun a little bit, but yeah, this is more of the meat part of it that I'm talking about. Yes.
So do you think most of these ones would be part of the bylaws that you'd be looking at, where was it just the inclusionary bylaw, or it's broader than that?
No, I think the inclusionary is going to take a priority just because it directly addresses or already exists with the intent of directly addressing affordable housing.
Okay.
But we've been talking, so, you know, that has a priority, but the idea of, you know, maybe overlay districts that that help us, what's a word I can think of, bring synergies between the business district and the need for housing. So you have the idea of a mixed use, I think you call it, which is a fair assessment. So you have residential, maybe on the second floor of a first floor business district.
Commercial. Yeah.
Commercial. Yeah.
Okay. But some of these things here, like potentially the size of lots and accessory apartments, all of these things would be in the mix of what would be probably talked about in the next coming months.
Definitely. So in addition to the overlay and the mixed use is the idea that if we could address the frontage requirements that currently exist in certain parts of town to maybe make that frontage smaller to permit smaller homes. That would be one way of looking at it.
Yeah.
I would think also the idea, and you've been seeing, if you've been following in the paper the last several months, the state is recommending that you simply be more open and have more available options for things like in-law apartments, etc. Duplexes, instead of restricting them to certain parts of town, you make them, for example, optional, available throughout town. You open that up.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think a significant change I can say here, just to help to share the enthusiasm we're feeling, is that the state has changed the requirements for switching bylaw changes from a supermajority to a simple majority.
Oh. So
that's a significant change in state law. So instead of looking at, I think, 2/3, you're looking at 51%. So that just kind of, again, reinforces the idea that there's a lot of enthusiasm for the potential for change here.
Great. No, that's good to hear. Yeah.
Jim, is that state bylaw change only refer to housing or all zoning bylaw changes? Do you know?
That's a good question. I think it's just referring to housing because the state recognizes that there's a severe shortage of housing
Mhm.
and they're trying to promote greater options for housing.
Okay. What about this one and the second one about revising the definition of elderly housing? Has that been tackled at all?
I'm sorry.
Number two, yeah, sorry. Revising the definition of elderly housing, has that been tackled at all or talked about?
This one
much
has
yet?
not been. This one
Yeah.
has not been. No.
Okay. And then whatever this townhouse from the existing multifamily dwelling, whatever that one, that may come up in your,
Yeah, that may come up. These two, B and C, 1, 2, B and C have not come up yet.
yeah, okay, all right, good to know.
And if I'm honest, I'm not sure what that's about.
I'm not sure what 2C is totally about here.
Yeah,
Multifamily dwelling definition and add townhouse. Yeah, I don't know. Ken or somebody may,
You know, I might
Remind you.
throw some light on that.
okay,
please.
I will say Ken Comia from
Mhm.
PVPC and the consultant, whose name is Richard Harris, working with planning board on
Mhm.
zoning bylaws in general. He has collaborated with Ken to understand what's in the master plan, as well as some of the other documents that we work with in our town. And I think this thing came up at a recent meeting and they did remove townhouse. There was a sort of an implication about townhouse that wasn't consistent with what our town wants to say. We don't have townhouses, we have multifamily dwellings. So I believe this is being addressed.
okay, all right, good to know. All right, well, just, just to see that there's progress here, that's great. And then
Yeah,
increase awareness of housing needs.
I just want to add,
Mhm.
I didn't mean to speak on your behalf, Cindy, as someone who's on the PB,
No,
feel
no,
free to
you're-
jump right in here.
I
You're
do.
at this meeting representing. I don't want to.
No, you're doing what you should, because I'm not close to it. Go ahead, Jim. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Okay, increasing awareness of housing needs and available housing resources. I
So
don't know that-
1.3A,
Yeah,
no progress on that, I'll have
Yeah.
to admit.
Yeah.
And I wrote myself a note because I was looking at this also that I don't know if this will be a high priority as the town webpage being a resource, and you would think, why not? I'm
Mhm.
not saying no, but I'm just saying it's interesting when we had the CARES Act funding available
right.
and we put it, not only on the town website, but we also had some great collaborations with
Mhm.
folks in town to put it on various Facebook pages. Tammy Walunas.
Had it-
Wow.
Had it in a couple of newsletters, I think, right?
Yeah, a couple of newsletters, had it on the why am I blanking on his name? Help me. Head of the highway department. It's just right here.
Randall.
Randall.
Randall, thank you, Mr. Kemp. He did it in his Facebook page. But anyway, we didn't have any response from that.
Mhm.
So that doesn't mean we're not going to do this, but it was a little bit of a gauge for where people look for information.
Yeah. Mhm.
So
Yeah.
Can I throw something out right now?
Mhm.
Because I'm on the almoners. We get interesting requests. And as a general statement, there are some people in town, now that there's been as you all know, as homeowners, that, your taxes may have gone up this year. And what we've discovered is that there are some individuals in town that are really struggling because the tax bills are larger. And I don't know how housing, and I'm looking at 1.3A, in terms of affordable housing resources, it's not changing housing, it's staying in their homes.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing this out as a recognized concern for some individuals in our town.
Mhm.
yeah.
Good. Well, I think under the CARES Act, what was being offered was a sum of money for rental and or mortgage assistance, if I'm not mistaken, mostly rental assistance. And because there were other programs ongoing in Easthampton and elsewhere, we did not have any takers for our program. So we ended up not using any of the funds that had been allocated toward that, and we reprogrammed those funds to other departments actually in the end.
Right, that was, Chris is right. That was very specific funds, very specifically for rental and also mortgage assistance. But there's already a state program called RAFT, and I forget the mortgage version of that also. Rental assistance, RAFT, I forget the FT, but it's a state program. And so the default was if people did have need for rental assistance, they could reach out to Wayfinders in Springfield, it's a housing authority, and they would initially see if RAFT funds are available. And then if the person was ineligible for RAFT or limited funds, then they could go for these CARES Act funds.
Yep.
And ironically, the CARES Act funds at the state level also really bolstered the RAFT budget overall. So that's why that may contribute to why we didn't have a need here.
Yep.
But I'll say to Cindy's point, we in the Housing Authority I'll remind board members and remind myself, but there's lots of ways that, again, this is why building a housing trust is so important in town, so that there's monies in a trust that can be used. You can use, like, for example, CPA funds through housing to assist homeowners with expenses to keep them in their home, Cindy. And those expenses are not, I don't think, to like pay taxes, but for example, they have a roof in a really bad shape and they just can't afford to replace that roof. But it looks like minus that roof being replaced, you know, they're going to have to leave because the roof's going to leak and it's going to become an issue with the Board of Health and et cetera. You could look at some small repairs or things like that that could potentially help support people staying in their homes.
People,
Actually, I am aware of that. That's great, Jim, to remind us all of that. Yeah.
Yep.
yeah, or
Francine?
for people with disabilities whose homes need to be renovated in order to allow them to stay at home.
Right.
To
To be ADA compliant or.
Yep. Okay.
Yep.
Well, and
Yep,
I'll just
it's
add,
all good to remind ourselves of that.
yeah, and I'll just add one thing. Having seen in the ARPA survey, looking at some of the results of that, for people who said that they had been negatively, there was a choice. How did COVID impact you on an economic level, basically? And the choices were, you know, no impact or negative. And those that answered negative, interestingly enough, many of them did say utility and or rental and food assistance, of those that did answer negative. So the need is still out there. It's going to be very hard, I think, to really identify who anybody might be, because, you know, everything is anonymous, certainly with the survey too, and confidential with almoners and whatever. So, you know, somehow it is that word of, you know, getting word out about where people can go for resources. And one of the things that we will be doing via the tech committee, hopefully in the next few months, it'll take a bit, but we will be updating the town website to make it much more user-friendly and navigatable. The idea would be that we will be able, I believe, to have everybody who's got their own page, you know, update their own page as they need to, rather than funneling everything centrally. It's going to be more decentralized, I guess I would say, once we get this rolling. So that's in the future, but that can be a better educational opportunity, I guess I would say, Jim. It's not really functional now because everything usually gets dumped on the home page and that's it, you know. But
Right.
there's got to be a way to make that better, to make it more usable for people that do want to use their computer and look for that stuff. Okay, well, we'll just keep on moving then. Partnerships with town committees. It sounds like this is already happening quite a bit with planning board for sure.
Yeah, with planning board, we met, I was a guest with the open space committee, which I think went really, really well. And I appreciate Cindy's help facilitating that. And we also, in addition to partnering with planning board, we obviously have great representation on our board from Joy, from the select board. I think the collaborations are better than I even anticipated, which is great. Yeah.
Good. Okay. Yep. Great. Affordable housing opportunities, number 4. Are we making any further progress here?
So we have as a board gone through the listing of town properties, for example, to see what's available that the town owns, either through reclaiming through non-payment of taxes or whatever. Nothing readily available. There's some possibilities, but there's wetlands issues, or there's possibilities, but the lot's too small, and that's where maybe looking at the zoning changes again could come into play.
Yep. Okay.
So I think we've started down that road. I think I don't think we are gonna continue down that road, but I'm cautiously at best optimistic that we'll actually produce something from that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, just realistically.
Yep. Is there anything, I know you mentioned CPA funds, and there may be something here if again, though, this would have to depend on, this 4D would have to depend on a zoning bylaw change, I assume, in terms of converting homes into rental units, right? That would have to be some sort of a zoning tied into your earlier zoning change idea, some of this part of your 4D.
Yes, I would say not necessarily. I mean, in theory, we could buy an existing single family home, and there's been some more affordable ones on the market that needed some work. The issue is the housing trust. We really don't have a mechanism to purchase anything minus the housing trust.
Okay.
I mean, it's possible, but you have to go before town meeting, and then by then the property's sold.
Right.
So the housing trust is the key to making 1,4D even viable.
All right. Fine. How about anything on E? I haven't followed up myself on the community development block grant program. Is this anything you guys have looked into? If not, the grant committee should look into this a little bit more to understand when anything might come due that could be of use.
Yeah. Thanks, Chris. You're providing great prompts. You're making me look brilliant. The grant committee is another home run in town government, as far as I'm concerned, because that's where, the latest grant we got, the DLTA grant for $5,000 that the planning board, not housing authority, the planning board successfully was granted. Is all, again, I think it's the grant committee is really helping with that. So that's the case here. We certainly encourage the grant committee to look at this, because no, we haven't done anything here.
All right.
It's kind of ironic, maybe not, and maybe this is where a bias on the part of the housing authority board, and I'll speak just for me, not the whole board, but there's a lot of enthusiasm in creating the housing production plan and the housing trusts, because we see those as the foundation for being able to actually act on things.
Right.
And then the next big thing is looking at zoning. But those things are kind of more in like the 5 to 10 year rather than 1 to 5.
Yeah.
So right or wrong, we've been enthusiastic in that area and not a little less active, frankly, on the short term.
Right. But that's interesting. I'm going to pop this out for a minute, because that was about what I was going to say, is that actually I think it's in the longer term goals, if I'm not mistaken, the other one comes up in terms of the local trust. So this is in the annex part of our update report, but go ahead and give us an update, because you have actually moved this forward. Right. I mean, the 10 to 15 years or whatever, I mean, it doesn't matter. I mean, if there's an opportunity to move something that was thought to be longer term, to move it farther forward, by all means. And it sounds like you guys are really starting to do that. So could you just give us a little update on that, and then we'll keep on moving. But
yeah, I think the reason this is moving, I don't think that anyone thought that this was less of a priority and so therefore a longer term goal. I think the reason, and I'm speculating, but I think the reason that this was placed in a longer term goal is because we thought, wow, this is a big hill to climb. There's a lot of work to get this done.
Yeah. And
so this is where, again, thank you, the grants and having that expertise come in and help us has made all the difference in the world. We would not be anywhere without the grants and the PVPC and Concom making these things happen. So
that's great.
That's why these things have moved at the priority, because the grants were there, the time was now, and wow, we can really get this done, and we're going to get it done in a short time. It's a shocker.
Mhm.
in a good way, in a good
Yeah.
way. And that's, again, that's for me, that's where the enthusiasm comes. Like,
Yeah.
wow, I never thought we'd get this done.
Yeah. And this, now the amount on this is a different grant though, right? This is,
Which,
The-
yeah, there's been several and I get them confused. I
Yeah,
got
the
them confused the other
GLTA
night
one-
at select board.
yeah, the GLTA one was for the zoning bylaws, but this other one just came through. And I
That
think this was
was-
through MHP
That's through mass housing. Yeah,
program. And I think
That
it's an 8-month technical assistance grant. So we don't really know its value. It's just the value of whatever technical assistance they
Right.
provide, we select however that's going to work. So that'll be getting going very soon, because I know I
Right.
signed off on the grant and we mailed it back.
Yep.
So
and that's a real, that's a home run, because they're going to help us build the housing trust and,
Right.
and the infrastructure, the admin structure around it, you know, how
Right.
to recommend. Because again, you can use CPA funds, my understanding, to fund a part-time admin person, for example. Just because that's some work, even once you establish it.
Sure. Yeah.
And it's a lot to ask of the select board.
Yeah. So that I think is just great to have that starting right at the same time. So somewhere 8 months worth of work is going to happen to help put that together, and however
Yep.
that's going to form in terms of what people have to be involved in the committee, et cetera, it's all to be determined, but at least there's also movement. So I think that's all just very, very exciting stuff here in terms of what's happening on the home front with things. That's just great to see that level of movement. So yay for the housing authority.
A lot of help
so.
from Janet and Sierra, and just
Right.
the grant committee, the planning board help. Just
No, it's
yeah.
good. Very good. No, that's great. So I think this is the kind of thing where I think on a quarterly basis, this is the kind of update I'd like us to try and do. And, we'll see if quarterly seems reasonable. We could maybe stretch it out a little bit, but let's
Well,
just
actually,
go ahead.
Chris, if I could just,
Mhm.
it does bring up a question that I have, when you say stretch it out a little bit, because it's ironic or not, or the timing, but I just reported the select board. It's not
Yep.
exactly the same things, but
Yeah.
When you think about stretching it out a little bit, it might be worth stretching it out, because it feels a little bit, in some areas, not all, a little
Yeah.
bit duplicative.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, I mean, it may not need, maybe we don't need to be quarterly, but at least twice a year. I think the master plan committee needs to meet for sure, or maybe 3 times a year, but maybe not quarterly. But yeah, we can talk about that. This one under economic development doesn't really belong to any of us per se sitting here tonight, I don't think. Offhand here. And I'm not sure between the Ag Commission and then again, some of this stuff with planning board. I don't know, Cindy, if any of this on the planning board under 2 and number 2 in particular, has any of that been talked about at all yet?
Yes.
Maybe not.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, definitely. How do I state this? This whole project, which includes amending table of use, looking at exactly what's stated here, has been going on for 4 years. I know
Okay.
you heard that at the select board meeting this week.
Yeah.
And and then 2 different consultants over time, and a lot of
Right.
other factors, COVID, et cetera. The current consultant now working with, what is it called? E-code something 360.
Right.
We're trying to put, I know from seeing Paul's emails that we haven't met since he went to the select board, but I do believe that attempts to pull in all these things together, and I know Francine, thank you for speaking with Paul. I will say progress is being made in a general way, and maybe, and specifically, I cannot be more specific than that tonight.
Yeah.
But I do
that's
feel
great.
confident that things are happening under all of 2.2.
Good. Okay. Sounds good. All right. Some of this, I will just jump in, and I'm totally without a hat, but on 2.3, let me just pop down here in terms of some of the streamlined and permitting process. one of the things with yet another of the ad hoc committees that I'm involved in, we may as well throw them all in here tonight, the Cost Efficiencies Committee. One of the things that has been started to be talked about is how we can do things that might enhance revenue, how we can do things that might be more efficient, provide better services to the town residents, could engender some cost savings. And one of the things that has come up via the building department was talking about looking at our permitting system, because right now we can do our building permits online, and that is happening. And yet there apparently is some other software out there that would, if we could deal with it, would actually make it less hands-on with everybody, the person having to walk around every office in town hall with a piece of paper and gain everybody's signatures, but it would be able to pass from whatever the building department to planning board to board of health to whomever that needed to sign off on something, and be able to be done electronically more efficiently. So this is one thing that will be looked at in more detail right now during this meeting, these meetings of the Cost Efficiencies Committee. So nothing yet, but this notion of not quite the single point of contact, but at least some software, some technology improvement might address some of these issues here. So just to say that this is kind of out there on the edges, at least, to be looked at. Okay. Any questions as we go along here? I'll just kind of skip down because I'd like to get to historical and open space before. I know, Brittany, remind me when you have to leave, and we'll jump in on anything there.
Okay.
For another half hour or so, or are you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. 2.4 infrastructure, water, sewer, telecommunications. So again, this maybe not. I mean, there may be some permitting things here, but just to say that some of this might be able to be addressed with the American Rescue Plan funds that we have. Some of these are categories for investment that they seem to be allowing. And one of the things that we might be able to do would be to do some improvement in water resources. For example, out at Hamden Ponds, we've had a presentation already come to us from the Hamden Ponds Association to talk about the issue of their well water, et cetera, out there, and the septic running into the pond, et cetera. So there's work to be done, no doubt. Broadband is definitely one of the topics that has been talked about on the ARPA funds that could be possibly used as well. So these are things that are, again, it might be just that perfect timing in lots of ways. There's a lot of things that we've got kind of on our plates here that may be coming due in terms of being able to be addressed through one type of outside funding or another. So we will try and take advantage of whatever we can possibly do, I guess, at this point. All right. Okay, chapter 3, historic and cultural. So, Christina, you're
Yes.
up. Anything in particular here that you can tell us about? I know you guys have met fairly recently, right?
Yes, we have.
Mm-hmm.
So on 3.1, what we discussed about 3.1A is that there's really no opportunity to develop a plan for future use of the municipally owned properties until the police and fire have found permanent quarters, and that that the development of that plan is really dependent on the select board. So we don't feel that we can independently move on that anyway, but it can't be moved on until the buildings are free to have new plans developed.
Right. Okay.
So that is, we haven't made there's not the opportunity to make progress on that. So what we discussed about expanding the number of properties, districts, areas, the only The only thing that we could really come to an agreement on regarding that is that we can update the Macris inventory, because you can't expand the number of properties. There are a finite number of properties. We just have to report them. So as far as expanding districts and areas designated, we haven't moved forward on any of that. The houses we are updating. We will be getting a hold of the 1920 census to try to see what buildings existed then that are not currently on the Macris list. And get those added. Now, we couldn't remember the date that it was last updated, but it was within the last 5 or 10 years that we updated it. So it's time, certainly, for that to be done. And that was a way to find out. We decided that one of our members, Elise Feely, will be trying to locate the 1920 census and then some deed records to facilitate our moving forward.
Great. Okay.
So moving on to 3.2, 3.2A. We have not been able to locate the 1997 points of interest map. The original was developed in 1967 and revised in 1976, and it was put together, a map put together by Ted Hendrick and Jerry Harriman. So I was able to get a map of the revision, the 1976 revision from Mr. Hendrick. He said that he thought he had heard that it had been revised again, updated, but he has never seen that. When Bob Koza checked at Town Hall and at the library, there was no awareness that existed. So we are uncertain of where that is, but we do have this 1976 map.
It's right here, Christina. I got the 1997 one right here.
Okay, where did you get that, Cindy?
I think Chris gave it to me.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to figure
Chris,
that out.
didn't you give this to me
At some point,
a couple of years ago?
I'm thinking, because I remember I met with Ted Hendrick a couple of years ago to try and look at something like that. I guess it was called the Points of Interest, was it?
It's called Points of Interest 1967, revised 1997.
Okay.
So I'll give it to you, Christina.
Yes,
Yep.
Please do. Please do, because as I say, it's not at the library. And Bob checked with Lucy, I believe, and did not come up with it. But we were gonna work with this 1976, but we'll happily work with the 97. And Mr. Hendrick would like to be a part of that. So
Nice.
that'll be a good thing.
Yep.
Now, I don't know what's on the 97, but what's on the 76 map is, well, first of all, I'll say that this was a map that was developed by the Conservation Commission, not the Historical Commission.
Right.
And
Right.
so we are happy to work on it, but the responsible parties listed are, along with Historical Commission, the citizen volunteers, and the town webmaster. So it does not seem, we have not been able to find it on the town website.
No.
And so, and we do not have a town webmaster at this moment, correct?
Right. Not really, no. We have somebody that is on call and updates for us, but not on a permanent basis, yeah.
Well, given that most of all of the points of interest on this map are natural features, geological features, and so forth.
Mhm.
It would seem as though the Concom should be involved in this revision as well. And actually being a Concom map,
Yeah.
the Historical Commission is certainly willing to work on it and willing to add and update it, but it's not
Yeah.
really exactly within our purview. There are no, Cindy, can you say on the map that you have that there are any historical buildings? Or
Yes,
No.
there are. Yeah, well, I see foundation of Hog Pomeroy's house.
Yeah,
I see Cellar Hole, Gibb Hall Homestead. I see, I'm just looking super
But not any
quickly.
actual buildings though, right? It's old cellar holes and things, right?
Yeah, appears that way. I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah.
Foundation for the old settler.
Right.
So I'm sorry, I don't actually see buildings. Foundation of community barn.
And I'm thinking I'd have to go back, and this is weird. Yeah, this came up when I was select board rep to Concom, and I'm trying to remember if I got this map from Concom, because they at the time thought it wasn't their purview, and it came into my hands somehow. And I took it upon myself at the time, before I was even involved with much of anything, to meet with Ted Hendrick to go through it. So I have some notes from my talk with him, Christina, which at some point we could get together and share. But that was a couple of years ago now. Strange. My memory is failing me in terms of how I got involved in this. But anyway.
so indeed, it was originally drawn up by Mr. Hendrick when he was on the Conservation Commission.
Okay.
It is a Concom map. As I say, we're very willing, we're actually quite interested in, and we might want to add some buildings. Certainly, you know, the canal and the lead mines and so forth need to be on it, and those are of interest to
Right.
us. But
Okay.
again, those are natural features or formerly built features.
Right. Yep. Okay. Good. All right.
So anyway, there's progress on it. Cindy, I would very much like to see that. And I will get some copies made probably for our next historical meeting.
All right, I'll drop it off at your house.
Okay, that's great. And
Great.
I don't know, Brittany, if you want to bring it up as at Concom to indicate that that is indeed a Concom map.
Okay.
And that maybe you as a commission could have some input on its revision.
Yeah, that would be great. If you could, would you be able to, do you have like an electronic copy? I know I've seen it, I just can't recall
No,
like having a copy of it.
no, let's see. I don't, but here's what I can do. I mean, I'm going over to the copy shop in Florence tomorrow, and I'm gonna have the 76 one copied. And maybe Cindy, I could swing by and get it so that I can have that one copied. And Brittany, I just get a copy, maybe put it in the Concom mailbox or something.
Yeah, that would be great, because we're still doing Zoom and we'll probably do it for a while. So if I can always scan it and upload it, and that way I can share it.
Oh, that would be great if you would do that.
Yeah.
Christina, that would be great if you could swing by. It's school vacation week and I have my granddaughter tomorrow. So I expect to be here. So just, show up. I'll bring it down to the kitchen. And if you could make one copy for the Open Space Committee just to have, because the references are really nice from the natural resource part of it. Okay.
Okay.
And I imagine it includes most everything that's on the 76 one. So, but I will check on that as well.
Okay. Yep. Chris, could you talk just a minute about the Newhaven Canal project that you all have been involved in?
Well, that I don't have an exact update on that.
Okay.
Bob reported, I don't believe they have met.
Okay.
Again. He did make a report on it at the last meeting, and I have to say,
But
I'm sorry, but I didn't take any notes on that, and I
That's okay.
remember that there was any significant progress that he
Yeah.
had to.
But just to remind you, this, I believe, was another DLTA grant,
Yes.
working
Yes.
regionally with several towns around us to try to really map out the canal, I believe, and aim to get it on the state register or the national register.
I think the National Register, because the Connecticut portion already is. on
Okay.
the Register. So Massachusetts, the 6 towns that it
Yeah.
runs in Mass are working toward getting it
Right.
on the register as
Yeah.
well.
So in a way that ties in really with the one up above, that 31C. You know, you're not expanding property. Maybe that's not the right word, the right
Yeah.
verb, but in your additional properties that might qualify to be on the register, that kind of ties in. So that's good that that's happening anyway. Great.
Yes, that would
Can
not
I-
have been able to be done by the Southampton Historical Commission alone. So it's just by the virtue of the fact that the grant was gotten
Yep.
and the towns are working on it together. So that's a great thing, and that is indeed.
Yep. Great.
Can I add that Bob Kozub did bring that to CPC. And so I think that's going to be on the warrant, that that the 6 towns working together for this I'm not sure what the verb is, to restore or have understanding of the Northampton Newhaven Canal. I think it's moving along pretty well.
Good. Okay. Well, we'll hear more about it, I think, but that's just to know that that's happening. That's great. So that's good. Okay. Yep.
Moving down to 32D. The Historical Commission recommends striking from the list of, or from strategies, because of its unworkability, working with landowners to ensure public access. There are liability issues, and we do not necessarily feel as a committee that we can request landowners to allow public access. It becomes a little bit complicated in our opinion.
Okay.
So that's just, we're not going, I guess that's by way of saying that we are not going to work toward that end.
Right. Okay. All right. All right.
Now you can make an argument against what I'm saying. I am completely open to that, but that was the outcome of our discussion at the commission meeting.
Yeah. Okay. Understood. Yeah.
And then we are working on 2F, the collection of historical photographs. And that's, so that's under discussion. And then now as far as a short summary for the Wikipedia entry, that also we're looking into. We're hoping perhaps to use or revise one of the brief summaries that already exist. And the ones that exist are the PVPC wrote one for the master plan. It's called Settlement History, and that could use some revision, but that's a possibility as far as taking some of the information from. And then there's also an introductory section, which I have not looked at carefully, but in Mr. Hendrick's book. So that's moving slowly forward. It's under discussion, and we are trying to make some movement.
Okay, great. And whether anything happens with photographs related to Celebrate Southampton, just to note that the weekend this year is going to be August 13th and 14th, I believe, or 12th, 13th, and 14th for Celebrate Southampton. So should there be any possibility of having any kind of a display at the library at the time, that might be a good possibility. But
yeah, that would be great. Okay, I'll report that back. I've got that written on
Yep. Okay, and some of these other things are more the cultural council, which doesn't really apply to you guys. I don't know about the signage on roads designated as scenic. I think that falls back onto us as well, and that hasn't, nothing has happened on that as far as I know. So that's another one to maybe for select board
That
to,
is true. We've more or less gotten through what the historical commission is responsible for. However, moving to 3-4A. Because we don't, I'm not even sure how this got onto this priority list. We do not have any local historic districts.
yeah,
So to adopt local design guidelines there would be no purpose in that.
mm-hmm.
We can't, it just doesn't seem we would do that if there were local historic districts, but there are not. And the only one that would be really considered a local historic district because of the density of its historic content is the East Street, the center district.
Right.
That would put constraints on a very small number of people. And the historical commission has been opinion over all the years that I've been on it that there would be great objection to it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I guess what would this actually mean? Because it says adopt them to portray architectural features. So what does that actually mean? I mean, you're not building anything new, so you're trying to feature something peculiar about House X, right?
Well, if there's a local historic district, it means that when we'll take the center district as an example, those guidelines would describe to the landowners the kind of renovations that they could make.
Okay.
Could not make. So for instance, as an example, in Dedham, where my sister lives, she's in a local historic district, and the windows in the homes in that district cannot be replaced. They have to be renovated. And the houses can be particular colors. It can be quite limiting.
Yeah, okay.
Because the historical commission has chosen not to even bring it before the town, because it would, first of all, they thought that it wouldn't pass, but it would put restrictions on a very small number of people, and it just doesn't seem like it's something that we're going to pursue.
Right.
So there's no point, absolutely no point in coming up with guidelines and standards, something that doesn't exist.
Okay, understood. And I guess as I'm thinking about it, the house on East Street that was recently sold, that had been right kind of at the corner of Elm Street there. I'm forgetting, that's one that I'm sure is going to be renovated somehow, but if this guideline or standard exists, then they would have had to follow all sorts of things for the kind of paint and windows and doors and everything else that they could do, right? Is that what you're saying?
It depends on the kinds of limitations that the historical commission would put on it.
Would come up with, okay, yeah. Okay.
Wally, there's the one there that was renovated with vinyl siding. I think it's just to the town side of the library by a couple of houses. Do you know which one I mean?
Yeah.
It's likely that wouldn't have been allowed if there had been a local district.
Right.
Because it's not historic fabric.
Right. Okay.
So that's the limitation that might take place.
Yeah. So this is a strategy that you would recommend striking essentially too, right?
Well, yes, because short of having a historical district, local district, there.
Okay.
Yes, the historical commission recommends striking.
Okay, I'm not totally sure how we let that one get back in here. I don't know. It's not one we created, so it's one that had to have existed before, but anyway.
Well, it does. And I think that somewhere in the master plan, I did not go to the original. one of the strategies is to designate local historic districts.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
So that would be a follow, that would be pursuant, if 4A would be following that.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Let's just do open space and natural resources. And I know, Brittany, you've got to leave here, so I'm going to just kind of scroll back and forth. But if there's anything that pops out from a lot of this, maybe a bit more open space and Concom, I'm not sure, but if there's anything in the 4.1 section that anybody could mention between Cindy or Brittany, anything that's happening at all that we know about? The open space residential development bylaw, is that something else that's being talked about, Cindy?
Actually, I don't know that it is being talked about. I think that would be, that could be interjected into a revision of some other bylaws.
Yeah. Okay.
But not very specifically that.
Yeah.
I'm slowing because I want Brittany to be able to speak.
Right.
She has something to add.
Yep.
I'm just looking through these quickly. I'm not sure anyone.
I don't think these public presentations have we
Yeah,
nothing lately per se.
no.
So
And
we don't need to.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
mean, the hard thing too is, I mean, it's pretty much the only things that are really falling under Conservation Commission purview is if it's, jurisdictional, basically.
Right.
I don't know how much interest I can garner for something that's not, jurisdictional.
Right.
That's, not wetland related, not, waterway related. I mean, I'm certainly sure that we'd be willing to work with another board on some of these, but as far as spearheading them, unless, they're really in our area of expertise.
Yeah.
I can certainly bring them up.
Yep. 4.2A might be something that I think both of you guys have been working on a little bit with some property on the mountain, no?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can go ahead, Brittany, if you want to add to any of that. 4.2A, prioritized list of open space, key open space parcels.
Yeah, that's definitely of interest to us. We've been kind of trying to work on, and we did just acquire land, courtesy of Ted Hendricks. He just donated a small parcel. So, because we've been really trying to, and we recognize, the benefit of having a kind of contiguous area going from Clearwater up to Pomeroy Mountain. So this new acquisition helps for sure. Definitely 4.2A is kind of being looked at.
And I'll add to that. I just got off the phone at noon today with Mark Walmsley from Kestrel. And this is an addition to our other conversations from last fall and last summer with their executive director, and also a new person that works with them, Bridget Likely, names that we're all beginning to feel very comfortable saying, because they are definitely noting that Southampton is moving forward to do exactly what we say we're going to do in 4.2A. We've got our list of key parcels, and we are looking at all these factors, and more specifically, Mark and I are working on the idea of probably putting together lands to be able to apply for a Massachusetts Landscape Partnership Grant, which is very big. You have to have a core property amount of properties that are 500 acres. So I would say progress is being made on this. It's not a quick process. It's a long process.
Right.
I'm making connections with landowners. I have a Zoom call set up on Monday with somebody in New York City who's a landowner up in way up above the Hoyok Waterworks lands. So it's ongoing, and I love walking around up there. So it's a general statement. Progress is being made.
And even though it's more water commission than it is Concom, you're working on the acquisition of properties with Kestrel Trust and community preservation, right?
Correct,
For that
yeah.
land on Pomeroy Meadow.
Yeah, that was what was discussed at the CPC meeting, just preceding this meeting.
Okay,
It will be, you know, all things going together well, it'll be on the warrant for the upcoming town meeting in May.
great.
And things are looking very positive. And just to let everybody know, this is absolutely an important parcel. This is owned by the Courtney family on Upper Pomeroy Meadow Road. It's 76 something acres. And it is key to the protection of our drinking water supply. So very important.
Is that down toward the end, Cindy? I've been trying to
Yes.
figure out where the parcel is. Is it the open field where the house is set, or adjacent to where the house is set far back on the
Yeah.
left hand?
Absolutely. The
Yep.
house that's set far back and the field in front of it is not part of this. That's a different owner. It's
So
the
it would-
house closer to the road. It looks like a kind of a salt box kind of house closer to the road. And 76 acres going all the way in the back, Christina, with includes the north branch of the Manhan.
Great. That's wonderful news. And
Mhm.
so I'll just report that we are making progress with our land too, and hopefully by mid-year, ours will be finalized.
Thank
Great.
you.
Wonderful.
That was definitely on the list as well. Christina's been great. And I know the Ted Hendrick donation, Ted and Paula Hendrick, the one that was just mentioned on the corner of Rattle Hill and Cold Spring, is very critical. And for your information, it's the 50th anniversary of the Ted and Maxine Hendrick donation on Lyman Conservation Area on College Highway. And I saw Paula, Ted's daughter, this morning, and she was really excited that there's going to be a recognition of that, the joint donations, those two things.
Mhm.
So,
That's great.
Yep.
So one thing just to think about, I know, Brittany, while you're still here, Concom had that wonderful map about, conserved areas in town and so forth, that, that little brochure.
Yeah.
It sounds like by the end of the year, with all this property maybe coming along, that the idea of updating that map ought to be really put on the agenda for Concom somehow.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's, we've had a little bit of a stall only because of funds.
Yeah.
And we needed some more trail work done at Clearwater. I've actually been, speaking of Lyman, before winter started, 2021 last year, I did get to go out and put medallions out there at Lyman. So hopefully we can start getting maybe some trails blazed
Great.
this year, because it is nice. It's a nice area. I got to walk all around it.
Mhm.
So hopefully that would be nice, actually, if it was the anniversary of that as well. Be a good
Yep.
timing.
Yeah, exactly. To be able to get out there, and again, I mean, just keep in mind, with the Celebrate Southampton that August weekend, I mean, if there's a possibility to do a hike and get out to see one of our properties, that would be great.
Yeah.
If it was, anything that could fit in by then. I don't know what's happening with the one Alice Brown. Is that forestry work started down there yet?
Oh boy, I can't even recall.
Okay, I knew it was delayed, but yeah. So anyway,
Yeah.
just to say that, to the extent we can figure out timing and do some things to promote and advertise both Concom and open space work, that would be great. So
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm making myself a little agenda list, so I will definitely add that.
yeah, and I don't know, just in terms of money, like for maps or trail maps or anything like that, I don't know how that came about before, because I know Concom has never had much of a budget, so I don't know if that came from CPC money before or a grant or what, but if there's something that I run across from the grant committee purview that might, that might fit, I'll be sure to let you know. As I search for different grants opportunities for various committees, if there's something that strikes me that might be able to fund some mapping work, I'll let you know. Okay.
Yeah, that would definitely be great. And I honestly, that's a good question. I'm not sure how those other maps came about.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I could certainly ask. Marla would probably know.
Because I think the current one, even Clearwater's not on it, right? So it
Yeah.
definitely is, beyond needing updating.
Yes. Oh, for sure. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
I'm gonna take off.
All right.
but
Thanks,
yeah,
Brittany.
definitely.
Take care of
Thank
that
you.
horse. All
Yeah, I
right.
will. Thank you.
All right.
Bye.
Thank
Bye,
you.
Brittany.
Okay, Cindy, yeah, just a couple more here and we'll get through this in another 5 minutes or so here. Open space recreation plan. So we're not due to do that right again. We've done that.
That's correct.
So we're done with that for now. Yeah.
But you know, let me, oh, I see.
Yep.
It's got open space committee because that's part of the charge of the open space committee now that there is an open space committee.
Right.
The
Exactly.
update of that. So I guess
Yep.
we're covered there. Yeah.
Yep. And priority areas. So this is some of this is a little bit duplicative, frankly, I think. But anyway, I think we felt that way back when too. Scenic preservation, scenic roads, etc.
Nothing new to add there. Just,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, unfortunately, it's not high priority right now.
Right. Yeah. Okay. How about 44E?
I think Christina just asked
Oh,
something.
sorry, Christina, go ahead. Yep.
I just said that maybe the historical commission would take up designating or recommending designations of more scenic routes.
Okay. Yep.
Undertake that.
Okay.
Great.
All right. Cindy, 4E, there's a little bit of talk about that, but not anything yet, really.
Yeah.
Community gardens.
That is, well, just Chris knows this, a non-town committee is coming together to form a garden club, for lack of a better word, that we might help, develop some, some community gardens or a community garden, et cetera. So it's very much in the beginning stages here.
Yep. Okay. Don't know about the salt policy and so forth. We'd have to check with Randall on that one. And as far as I know, BAPAC has not been reconstituted. It died on the vine, as far as I remember, and I don't think it's come back to life yet by any community yet.
It has not.
Okay. All right. Well, we got lots of stuff in here. How do we get all this stuff here? Lots of education. Okay, environmental inventory. Okay. Well, so trail maps we just talked about. So that is lack of money issue more than anything else in terms of mapping resources in 46B. I know trail maintenance is always an issue for Concom. 47A, that's actually moving along. We're well down the road of the rail banking agreement. We had hoped to have that finalized by mid-year so that we could actually be working on the design for the bike path. We'll see how well that goes, but I know the lawyers from our side as well as the legal folks from the railroad are working on the agreement for the rail banking. So that is actually having some movement forward, and we have $200,000 in grant money to purchase the right-of-way, and then the balance was from CPC. So the railroad decided to honor the letter of agreement that they had put forth about 3 or 4 years ago with the price of, I think it was $350,000, I think, to buy the right-of-way for our portion from Sheldon's ice cream on up to the Easthampton town line. So things are moving a little bit.
Yay.
Yeah. This Greenway Wildlife Corridor Management Plan, I don't know of anything happening here at this point in time. We do have a new Greenway committee and some, active chairman there. So Aaron Tauscher and some other members who have been working with me on some grant writing. Ellen Sengus and Mark Cassis, I think, that are part of the Greenway committee. So they're meeting and trying to get people more involved. And once we get some concrete things finished with the railway and the rail banking, I think that'll keep them going. So I don't think at this point in time, I know we're running a little late here. I don't want to keep us forever and ever here. Just going to scroll down and see if we see anything here about mobility issues, bike racks, PVPC. It's a little bit We're going to be having a little bit, you guys are aware of the sidewalk coming in front of the cemetery to link up High Street to Pomeroy Meadow Road. That's going to probably break ground in April. That 900 feet of sidewalk there, there will be a continuous walking path, which is tied into more mobility throughout town. Nothing else that's coming to my mind now. There's some talks about feasibility studies for certain parts of town that are having some traffic issues, but nothing that has come forth yet, and certainly no talk yet about a PVTA or public transit coming through town that I'm aware of at all. So let's see here. Some of these things are a little bit odd, but anyway, I think the roadside vegetation usually has been trimmed pretty well between tree warden and the highway department for the most part. That's about it on that one, so not a whole lot. Who's next? Public services and facilities. Boy. Well, first two. So part of what you're talking about with the Barnes Aquifer and the recharge areas, that the whole publication that Open Space did, right? In terms of the importance of our water in town and the Barnes Aquifer and maintaining your property correctly. So there's been major progress on that with the brochure that was mailed around to all residents. This
All homeowners.
Homeowners, okay, sorry. All homeowners. 61B is something that I think may be partly talked about, not necessarily, I'm not sure about Two Valley Road part, but this is maybe part of what the Hampden Ponds Commission is talking about, to try and tie in to the water system in Westfield if possible.
Yeah.
I think it's, yeah,
There's
both,
a sewer, not water.
yeah, right. Yeah, so that's something that they're going to be coming to us and talking about a little bit more. I don't know about anything about the some of these. We'd have to catch up with the Water Commission and ask them more about any of these things that they might be doing with the dams, if anything. Apparently there was some reparation needed on the Alder Pond Dam. I don't know, other than the beavers, I haven't heard too much about what the issues were there myself. What else? That's pretty much there. So appropriation for the library that got dealt with some supplemental funds.
I'm having trouble keeping minutes here.
Yeah, no, I'm just kind of talking to myself because there's not, I don't want to, you know, if there's not a whole lot to say. A lot of these are for other boards and we don't necessarily have the input on them, but I just saw one here that I will give you some input on, which is down here at 9A, 69A.
Okay.
Even 68B, I can say that during the CARES funding last year, a good amount of CARES funding went to the school, to Norris, to buy Chromebooks and laptops, etc., for teachers and the kids, enabled to do that distance learning. So it may not have been for the right reason that they got it, but nonetheless, there was an upgrading, I think, of their computer hardware at the school.
Okay.
We are talking right now in the ad hoc tech committee about the possibility of a municipal light plant. And this is what the town would have to do. This is a possibility at the state level for the towns to basically become their own utility. And this would be what we would have to do through 2 consecutive votes at town meeting, 2 separate years of town meeting votes to allow the town to become a municipal light plant that would allow us to then connect with, we've had meetings with Whip City Fiber out of Westfield, as well as Holyoke Gas and Electric and South Hadley Electric, to connect with a vendor such as they to basically install broadband throughout the town and basically run our own internet broadband service and have that as both an income generator as well as improved service, better speed of service, etc. So there's some meetings going on. We've had 2 meetings already talking about this, and this is something I think may come to fruition in terms of at least a first vote to come before the town, hopefully for May, but if not, for probably a fall special town meeting. So there's some movement there in terms of creating our own utility, which means that we would have to finance out the development of the broadband network in town, but that would allow us to not be under the municipality, under the monopoly, shall we say, of charter. And then whatever we decided was going to be the rate to charge homeowners, that it all gets managed by, say, the Whip City folks or the Holyoke Gas and Electric folks. They do all the billing, they do all the maintenance, and our loan that we would have to take out would pay some of the costs of that. But then the difference between the loan amount and what the homeowners might pay would be coming back into the town to help pay off that loan. So it's a little convoluted, but anyway, just to say, there's some interesting ideas out there. Technology has been improving, and so the tech committee has taken this on to take a look at in more detail and see if there's any recommendations they could make to select board and the town in general. So that may be forthcoming. So this municipal light plant is a new terminology for many of us, but that's where we are. Energy wise, the only thing I'll say here is, again, through the cost efficiency committee, sorry, I scrolled down too far, and of course it won't let me scroll back. Let me try. Talking about whether we could possibly switch out the street lights for LED lights, and then take advantage of a green energy grant that we already have. And that may be possible. It takes a lot to get the permissions from Eversource to do such things. So it's not a simple thing, but it's, again, something that's being tossed around a little bit. Not an immediate thing, but something a little bit, you know, downwind in terms of several months down the line, but it at least is being talked about. Nothing else on other ones that I'm aware of at this point in time, although promote biking where feasible. That's probably happening in many cases, but the solar, the idea of some sort of a solar energy installation in town came up fairly favorably on the ARPA survey. I will say that. I haven't got the figures yet, but that there was more interest in that than I would have maybe expected. Let's see, just quickly here. This pedestrian connection, so 83C, actually with that sidewalk coming in, I would feel comfortable saying that 83C will be somewhat achieved, because kids will be able to walk from the school all the way downtown, and there might be some improvements needed on that sidewalk from High Street on down to Town Hall. It can't be much wider, but it can be improved a little bit. So that may happen in a second phase, but I think that's actually something that we could say is underway. We'll be talking about issues like staffing. I mean, the issue of conservation agents and planning people, etc., have come up numerous times. So nothing yet, but in our current budget process that we'll be doing for this year, some of that may be coming up as well. So all that to say, there's a lot in the master plan itself, and I think we've actually started making some good headway on lots of things in the last 6 to 8 months. That's my kind of overview. I don't know if anybody would like to jump in and add a couple points before we call it quits for tonight, but
I'm going to make one point.
Yep.
The fact this planning committee, this master plan implementation committee, as well as the collaborations that Jim mentioned, I'm hearing from actually everybody. The point is there is collaboration between committees and boards and towns, and that to me is really, really an important part of this. it's kind of a soft assessment here. It's not a, specific. We can't really, evaluate it in terms of numbers, but
Right.
I think that's part of why successes are occurring.
Mhm.
That's my thought.
Great. That's good.
And,
Okay.
and I just want to add to that, that this is at a time when collaborations are more challenging just by virtue of the fact that you're not meeting together with people.
True.
But somehow
Yeah.
we're getting things done despite the barrier.
No, that's quite true. No, I really do feel there's a level of momentum happening here that, in spite of what we've had to go through, it really is starting to gel here. So that's great to see. So good. So only one last thing, as I mentioned, the annual town report. So first of all, so from some of these notes tonight, I will compile a report out to select board, okay, from the master plan committee. If you would like to allow me to do that without having to come back to us for another meeting, I will be glad to do that from the notes. And then for the annual town report, like I say, I thought I would just pull together the, might just some edits because it had some headings in it, but the last report out that I did do to select board a few months ago, let's see right here real quick. I think I would just do a few edits on that, but the priorities and some of that would pretty much stay the same, but it would be whatever the write-up would be for the annual town report, and that's due very shortly. So I do need to get some of that done. But this was fairly comprehensive. Like I say, I think some of the headings don't really totally apply. So I might modify it slightly, but I would use this as a base if everybody's generally okay with this, to be sort of the summary of what we did last year. So this goes from January to December, and we'll get that into Judy for the town report, if that's okay, without having to write from scratch again.
Do you need a motion on that, Chris, or can we just all agree that you can do this?
Whatever you'd like to do, we can, sure, we can have a motion on that if you'd like. Yeah.
All right, then I move that Chris can do an update of the previous select board report and also write the all-town report from notes of tonight's meeting without coming back to us for approval.
Okay.
I'll second that.
All right. All in favor?
Senior
Oh,
eye.
yes.
Okay. Fowles eye. All right. I think I heard everybody. Good. All right. Well, that'll be fine. I think that's great. Thank you. I think we can manage that. How about, can we set an idea for a next meeting, or do you want to just wing it for a while? This is already end of February, so I wouldn't suggest anything until maybe, I don't know, early June.
Yeah. that would make
Offhand,
sense.
something early June, and we could wait till a little bit later and set an actual date if that's okay, but that's fine with me.
I think
Yeah.
early June is great, and because I'm an optimist, maybe we can meet in person and
Yes,
you
no,
know.
thank you. I was about to say, I'm hoping that this is our last Zoom meeting for master plan. And yes, the goal would be, in fact, if we had had this during the day today, I would have had it outdoors. But
Oh, it's beautiful today.
what a crazy day, huh? Gosh
Yeah.
knows what we're walking into with a snowstorm coming our way, but yeah, so I think our June meeting will be outdoors somewhere. So good. In
Chris-
person. Anyway, yeah, Jim.
Chris,
Mhm.
I'd like to also add your the congratulations and acknowledgements just said at the end of this meeting. I think it would be remiss if it weren't said also that the facilitation and the support and frankly the leadership from the select board has had a lot to do with how
Mhm.
everything is rolling out in town and the collaborations that we're seeing.
Mhm.
So I think I would like to acknowledge that.
Great,
And
Great
thanks.
job.
I would just like to say, and specifically attribute that to Chris.
Absolutely, totally.
Well, thank you. It is a group effort nonetheless. So, I think that's great. No, I think there's, a lot of things just happen for the right reason at the right time. And I think everybody's got a level of energy and are putting it to good use. So I'm glad to see it all happening. So thanks everybody for your help on everything as well. And I know everybody's charged with so many different hats and committees and responsibilities outside of town duties. So thank you all for making yourselves available for all the volunteering you do as well. Okay. All right. Well, have a good evening and stay somewhat warm and whatever. Stay safe on whatever this snowstorm is bringing us. All right. Talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.
Right.
Night, everybody.
Oh, we'll just
Good
make a motion. We just adjourned.
We adjourned.
We adjourned. All right. Thanks, everybody. Bye now.
Night.
Good night.
Night.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.